Learn how to create a vintage t-shirt in Photoshop. You will learn an array of things from choosing the best retro font all the way to applying distressed textures. My name is Ashley and I am a graphic designer. So without further ado, let's hop right on into this here tutorial. Now before we get started, I did want to mention that this template is actually available on my Gumroad account. Of course, the Cardi B images won't be included, but if you want to take this design, use it as your own, and change around the images and stuff, it is available there on my Gumroad. Let's get started. So the first thing you want to do here is create a new document. I will be using inches. My size will be 10 by 12, resolution 300, and the color mode will be RGB. So here, go ahead and add a solid color fill layer. And the color I will be using is a very dark color, 030114. And now using your type tool, type out Cardi B, and I will be using the font Big Mummy. Also, everything will be linked in the description box. The size will be 109. And your vertical scale, change this to 340%. And change the color here to white. Now place this at the top of your document. Now what we're going to do is warp the text. Use arc lower. And horizontal, the bend will be -36 and the vertical distortion will be 32. Now go ahead and duplicate this Cardi B text layer twice so that we have 3 in all. Make the top 2 invisible, and on this first text layer, change the fill to 0%. Now let's start adding some layer styles. We will start with bevel and emboss. Change the style to inner bevel. Technique is chisel hard. The depth will be 376. Direction up, size will be 158, and soften will be 16. For the angle, change it to 60, and the altitude will be 1. Change the gloss contour to this one. And for highlight mode, change this to vivid light. And the opacity will be 99%. And then for shadow mode, change the opacity to 0%. Now let's click on contour and change it to this one in the second row. Now let's add an inner shadow. Change the blend mode to linear burn, and the color will be black. Change your opacity to 72, uncheck use global light, change the distance to 31, the choke will be 9, and the size will be 49. And change the contour to this one in the second row, and your noise will be 13%. Now click on Inner Glow, change your blend mode to Divide. The opacity will be 100%. And the color will be a gold color, which is D29222. Change your size to 50, and we will select this one in the first row. Now let's add a satin layer style. Change your blend mode to overlay. And the color will be red. I will be using EB0808. And the opacity will be 99%. Change your distance to 48, and the size will be 87. And now select this one in the first row. Now let's add a gradient overlay. And for our first stop, I will move it a bit so that it's a little bit closer to the right. And my first color will be E70202. And then move it over a bit. For my next color stop, I will use FD7C0A. And then for my last color stop, I will use FDD80A. And then at the top, make sure you change the opacity to 0%. And now this is how your text should look so far. So take your second Cardi B text layer and we will add some layer styles to this one as well. Make sure your fill is set to 0%. Let's add a stroke. Change the size to 5. The position will be inside and the color I will be using is blue. So use 3E55FC. And now let's add an inner glow. Change your blend mode to lighten. And the opacity will be 100%. And let's change this here color to purple. Use 8522D2. Change your choke to 15 and the size will be 24. And change your contour to the first one in the first row. Now let's add a drop shadow. And let's use this color. And the opacity will be 64%. Change your distance to 0. The spread will be 52 and the size will be 54. And then click on OK. And now take this third layer and place it underneath all the other layers. Here you will right click, convert to Smart Object. And then let's add a stroke to this layer and the size will be 7. The position will be center. And the color will be orange. So I am using D95217. Now let's add a motion blur. And the angle will be 90 and the distance will be 276 pixels. And then use your move tool so that it aligns with your text. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to add some more layer styles, but before we do that, place this within a group and apply the layer styles to this group / folder. So start off with bevel and emboss. Change your style to emboss. Your technique will be smooth and your depth will be 615%. Your size will be 98 and soften will be 15. Change your angle to 90 and your altitude will be 30. And then change the gloss contour to the last one in the second row. Highlight mode will be screen and the color will be pink. I am using F10966 and the opacity will be 78%. For shadow mode, change it to overlay and the color will be 181819 and then change your opacity to 46%. Now we will add a stroke. The size will be 4. The position is inside. The opacity will be 59%. And the color will be blue. I am using 4229FA. Now let's add an inner shadow. The blend mode will be vivid light. and the color will be a deep purple. I'm using 401842 and the opacity will be 100%. Change your distance to 27. Your choke will be 18 and the size will be 188. For contour, use the first one in the first row and the noise will be 16%. Now for inner glow, change the blend mode to hard mix and the opacity will be 77%. The color will be a gold color, so use DEA 907. Choke will be 16 and the size will be 18. And then for contour, change it to this one in the second row. Now let's add a satin layer style. Change the blend mode to hard mix. And the opacity will be 77%. Change the distance to 121 pixels and the size will be 136 pixels. Make sure invert is checked and change the contour to this one in the second row. Now let's add a color overlay. Change your color to a deep navy color 290496 and then click OK. So now this is how your text should look so far. So now take all of your text layers and we will place these within a folder, and go ahead and give your folder a name. Now open up your halftone texture and give your layer a name just to keep everything organized, and drag it over into your document. Resize it so that it fits on top of your text layers. And then right click, create clipping mask, and change your layer style to soft light. And now we're going to add this like frosted texture layer. And again, go ahead and give this layer a name and bring it on over into your document. Resize it so that it fits, and then create clipping mask. And change this layer to soft light, and the opacity will be 50%. Now we're going to open up our Fire stock photo and add it to the document as well. But before we do that, go to select subject and create a mask. And then drag it on over into your document. So I want to change the color of my fire. So to do that, I will add a hue and a saturation layer and create a clipping mask and change your hue to -70. Now open up the Cardi photo and of course rename it and convert it to a smart object. Then go to select subject and create a mask from the selection. And as you can see, her right hand is cut off, but that doesn't matter in this case because another picture that I'll use of Cardi will actually cover up this missing part of her hand. So bring it into your document and make it bigger. And then select the mask and grab a soft brush and get rid of the bottom portion. And now open up another photo and rename the layer. And go to select subject. And as you can see, the selection isn't so great. So use your pen tool here and go through and use the add to selection and the subtract from selection to clean up the selection basically. And I'll speed this up a bit as I clean up this here selection. And then of course make a mask from it and bring it over into the document. Make it larger. And now we're going to open up the photo of Cardi in silver and basically do the same thing again. And then again, use your paintbrush to get rid of the bottom portion. Now grab the ellipse tool and make a circle that's about 3.25 inches in diameter. And for the fill, we will change it to a pink color, so 3E55FC. And then for the stroke, we're going to use a blue color, so use 3E55FC. And change your stroke to 13 pixels. Move this layer beneath all of the photos of Cardi that we have so far. And duplicate this layer as well and put this other one on the right side. Now open up the Cardi Jealousy cover and rename it. And then right click, create clipping mask over one of the circles that we just created. Make it bigger so she fills most of the space. And then for this part, make sure your foreground is set to a pink color. I'm using EE319D. And then your background is set to white. So click on filter and filter gallery. And then from here, click on halftone pattern. Make sure the size is set to 3 and the contrast is set to 5, and then click OK. So now we're basically going to do this same exact process with the Cardi in red photo. Convert it to a smart object, bring it into your document, create a clipping mask from it on top of the other circle that we created, and resize it so that she fills the space. So here I'm going to add the same filter, but I am going to edit this a bit more so that it brings out her face a little bit more, because I feel like if I left it as is, you kind of lose some of her features in her face. So I lessen the contrast. So at the bottom, I will be typing out Barty Gang, and I will be using the font Black Letter. Change the font size to 129, and it doesn't really matter what color you use for the font, but change your vertical scale to 100%. So now select your first text layer and copy this layer style and paste this layer style. So now select all of your artwork except for the black background, and we are going to place this within its own folder. Give it a name and then duplicate it. Convert this layer to a smart object, because now we're going to add a little bit more texture to this artwork, because it seems as though it's a little bit too clean. So I want to add some texture to it. But first we're going to start off with the Conte crayon, and the foreground level should be 11, background should be 7, scaling 100%, and relief is 4. Add another layer to this and we will use halftone pattern. Change it to 2 for the size and 5 for contrast. And then the pattern type will be line, and then click OK. For our final step, go ahead and change this layer to pen light with an opacity of 60%. And that is how you create a vintage bootleg rap t-shirt. So if you like what you saw today, make sure you click that like button and also subscribe. And don't forget to click that bell icon to be notified of any new videos. Thanks for watching.